Hello.
And welcome back to Through the Trapdoor. I'm Katie.
And I'm Emily.
And this is chapter 3 of A New Leaf to Turn.
Woo! Last time, Will's letter was delivered.
Into the middle of his birthday cake, and I love every moment of it. Vernon is bright red. Petunia is stark white. Diane has no idea what's going on.
Katie and I sang.
Which I don't think will ever happen again.
Please
because this is not a musical podcast.
We're not musically inclined people. Unless I'm standing in my kitchen by myself singing like Freddie Mercury.
And I ain't gonna annoy someone in the car, but I ain't getting a record deal anytime soon. Alright, it's my turn to read, so
let's do it.
It is a shorter chapter. I don't know how I keep getting the shorter ones.
You're just lucky.
I am lucky. Also, I've tried to read this whole thing. It's gonna be new to me, because it's just who I am. Alright, here we go. No one moved for at least an hour. Alright, perhaps that was stretching the truth. Let's hope so. In reality, it was only about 30 seconds. But to Dudley, that letter made time stand still. That same letter that almost 30 years ago had turned Dudley's life upside down, it was the same letter that told Harry he was a wizard. A wizard. But that means... But Dudley could not finish that thought. For Marigold had already broken the silence with her sweet voice. Will, look! A birthday card! The 9-year-old clapped her hands excitedly as Dudley set her down on the floor. Will blinked before looking around at the feathers. I guess so, but wow! What was that? A hawk? An owl? The smallest blonde laughed. Maybe it was the zoo sending me a special birthday message.
That would probably also be my first initial thought.
Probably. Will was still smiling as he reached for his letter. But Dudley saw another hand move towards the letter, his father's. Dudley knew what would happen if Vernon Dursley got his hands on that letter.
I would just like to point out it's weird that every single time we've mentioned Vernon, it's specifically said both his first and last name.
Yep, it has. It has. He's either your father or Vernon Dursley.
And, it's referred to Petunia as grandmother, but Vernon's only ever been your father or Vernon Dursley.
Yep. Interesting.
I feel like I've also said Vernon so many times now that it's, starting to sound strange in my head.
Just like when Harry got his letter, the oldest Dursley man would just write any letters to Will that he could get his hands on. And just like when Harry was 11, the letters would keep coming until they would become too much for the family to handle. Definitely not something Dudley wanted, even if he wasn't sure what he thought of the letter's appearance. I'm just going to pause this real quick right here and say this. What happened to Muggle-borns getting a member from Hogwarts staff coming to explain the letter to them? Harry didn't get it. Hermione did. But Dudley's son doesn't get one. I understand that Dudley grew up with Harry, but that doesn't mean he knows anything.
He's not magical.
Harry, again, did not get a member of Hogwarts staff coming to explain that letter to him until, 10 days later, when Hagrid had to break down a door.
Literally broke down the door.
So, also, I feel like May is rather early to get your letter.
I feel like I think it's supposed to be on your 11th birthday.
Okay. So, because Harry didn't get his letter on his 11th birthday, Hagrid broke down the door on his 11th birthday.
Oh, true.
Harry got the letter 2 weeks beforehand, in June.
Where did this on your 11th birthday thing come from?
Oh. Fanon.
I wonder if maybe, if you're not, if your birthday's, after a certain point of the year, you get it, like, at a standardized time.
Maybe.
Whereas, like, if your birthday's, like,
Prior to?
Yeah, prior to that particular day.
Probably sometime in June.
You get the birthday, like, or the letter on your birthday.
Okay. I can accept that.
And then, like, if your birthday's, like, second week of June or later, you get it, like...
sometime in the first or second week of June.
Yes, just so that way, like, oh, hey, I'm a wizard. Oh, hey, I'm going to go to wizarding school. I need to go buy all this garbage.
Right. But if Will got a letter, oh no! Dudley's mind raced. Did he want his son to read the letter? No. At least not yet. If William read that letter now, chances are that he would simply discard it as another joke or even become scared at what the letter entailed. Dudley has spent the past 19 years ignoring everything that letter stood for. Now he had but a split second before deciding that, although he was not against his son reading the letter, he wanted his family to know what they were getting into.
Which is reasonable.
I understand that. But both his father and his son had reached out their hands to grab at the letter. Dudley made his decision faster than his right hook and snatched the letter from them both. Dudley's still using those boxing moves.
Yep.
Way to go. Boxing reflexes. Will's blue eyes brightened in surprise as his father took his own letter from him. Hey, Dad, that's mine. Again, made him a sassy 11-year-old girl.
That's just who he is now.
That's who Will is. Dudley tried to ignore his own father's still beet red face and instead put his best smile on for his son. I know, Will, but I just want to clean it off before you read it. You wouldn't want to get chocolate icing all over your hands before opening your presents, would you? Will looked at his dad for a moment, pondering. Then, to Dudley's relief, he smiled. That makes sense, Dad. Do I still get to eat my cake and ice cream? Dudley laughed, trying not to show any signs of relief. Of course! At this time, Will seemed satisfied. Okay, but hurry, I want to open my presents. The smallest blonde was grinning from ear to ear, making Dudley laugh in return.
I feel like it's weird that they describe him as the smallest blonde, because I don't, like, envision Vernon as being, like... Blonde.
But here's the thing. This is a fan fiction thing that always happens. They never, like, they'll half the time to describe the character's phrasing as from Will or from whatever, or the tallest Weasley, the smallest blonde, the blue-eyed person, the boy who lived. Like, just say their name.
Just say Will. Just say Will.
Please, just say Will. Diane picked up the plate that held the cake on it. What have I told you about being impatient, William? She tried to send her son a stern look, but faced with the boy's sheer joy, the chastising look melted away as she made her way into the kitchen. Dudley quickly followed with the chocolate-coated letter, leaving his parents alone with his children.
Not a choice I probably would have made.
Not in this moment. Only when he was in the kitchen did he dare look at the letter. His heart was pounding loud enough that he swore Diane could hear it from the other side of the kitchen. I mean, at that moment, my heart would probably be pounding that hard.
Oh, yeah. At least.
I mean, I just spent the last 19 years trying to forget about my magical cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have found out my son is a wizard.
Yep.
I'd be pretty shooken. Shaken?
Shaken.
Shook.
Sure.
I don't know. Especially knowing how my father would react, which is poorly.
Yes. Very poorly.
I mean, just based on how he treated my cousin.
Extremely poorly.
Again, locked him in a cupboard for 11 years until he became a wizard, then gave him the smallest bedroom because he was scared.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even like they knew for a fact he was a wizard when they took him in and locked him in the cupboard initially. Like,
right. They were just like, oh, your parents were wizards, killed by some evil dude. We're going to lie to you your whole life and say it was a car crash. It's a miracle he turned out half decent. There it was, the same emerald ink as the last time, But this time, Mr. William Dursley, head of the dining room table, 16 Chestnut Avenue, Workingham, England. Is that a real place, or did they make it up?
I couldn't tell you.
I honestly probably would have tried to use the exact same address as Fort River Drive, but just made it like Little Winching, Surrey.
Mm-hmm.
Just made up a list.
Yeah.
Now I kind of want to Google if that's a real place.
Please hold while we Google.
You got it? You got it. All right. I don't care about the 16 Chestnut Avenue. I just want to know if Workingham, England is a real place.
Yes, it's 39 miles west of London.
Well, there you go.
Didn't even have to type in the name all the way.
Well, kudos to this author for doing their research and not just creating a fake city in England. They knew where he was seated. Dudley stared at the envelope. But why was he surprised? They had known that Harry had slept in the cupboard under the stairs, for crying out loud. But did this letter really mean that Will's a wizard like Harry? Something about that thought made Dudley excited. Did he want his son to be like his cousin? There was certainly nothing wrong with his cousin. He was a very selfless and courageous man. Dudley would be proud to raise a son with such qualities.
I would hope so, Dudley.
'Cause selflessness and courage, pretty delightful qualities.
Your son would be in Gryffindor. Just throwing that out there real quick.
Yeah, I would definitely place Will in Gryffindor. But you know what? Let's properly sort him once we've learned everything about him post-end of the...
Yes.
At the end of the 13 chapters, we will tell you what house we think Will is in, if it's not already in the story.
It may very well be in the story. I don't remember.
But not all wizards are good, he remembered. Like the wizard that killed his aunt and uncle, Harry's own parents, the same group of wizards that had forced Dudley and his parents to flee his house in the middle of the night. Could he live knowing he might raise a dark wizard? Before Dudley could answer his own question, the sound of footsteps running past the kitchen door were heard. Confused, the blonde man set the letter down on the counter to follow the noise. The sight in the hallway only further confused him. Mom? Dad? Where are you going? Dudley couldn't help but ask when he saw his parents putting on their coats and scarves. Petunia Dursley gave her son a sheepish smile. Oh, Diddykins, I'm sorry, but something's come up. We really must be going. Dudley didn't buy it for a second. You're leaving because of the letter, aren't you? For some reason, the fact his parents would leave his son's birthday party for some letter made his blood boil. Vernon, who Dudley noted was still quite red, only grunted.
It sounds accurate.
Call us when that blasted letter has been destroyed. Oh, and then you'll treat your grandson like he's human? But what about when the next wave of letters come? You know they don't just give up. Will you abandon him every time he receives a letter? Dudley knew he was getting loud, but it wasn't until that moment that he began to see how infuriating his father could be.
Good for Dudley.
The eldest Dursley looked as he thought he might burst a blood vessel. Don't you dare speak to me that way, boy! Dudley's hands were in tight fists. So I'm boy now? I thought you only called Harry that. Don't ever mention him in front of me, Dudley. I never want to hear the name of that... Don't! Dudley couldn't stand it anymore. He had put his foot down, literally causing some of the wooden flooring to vibrate. Don't call him that, Dad. I don't ever want to hear you use that word in this house again. If you call Harry that, then you're calling Will that. I don't know if you had some reason to dislike Harry, but I know you love Will. Or at least you did not even 15 minutes ago when you were congratulating him on his birthday. Letter or no letter, Will is still your grandson, Dad. Until he goes off to that school, then he'll be one of them. just as unnatural and disturbing. His father bit back. Then he'll be a freak. Dudley saw red. But instead of giving in to the urge to pummel his father into a fatty pulp, because we all know that's all Vernon could be pummeled down into, because that's all he is, he instead marched right past them into the door, opening it for them. Get out! Vernon was almost purple, giving his best intimidating look. What did you say, boy? Dudley wasn't fazed by his father's temper tantrum. I will not just stand here and let you insult my son and my family. Unless you want to accept what your grandson is, I suggest you leave until you can. The blonde's grip on the doorknob was almost a death grip. Staring down at his father, each Dursley man was challenging the other. And it was just a battle of wills. Finally, after a tense few seconds, Vernon Dursley stormed out of the house. Come on, Petunia! Petunia, who had been quiet the whole time, slowly made her way to the door. When she passed Dudley, she tried her best to give her son an apologetic look. I'm sorry, Dudley. I know Will's a good kid. Your father is just... Mom. Dudley watched as his mother pursed her lips, the way she always did before continuing. Don't apologize for him, Mom. If he wants to be Will's grandfather, he will have to get over his hate for Harry. To his surprise, his mother nodded. I know, Dudley, but you know how stubborn your father is about these things. People can change, Mom. I did. There's no excuse for him to abandon Will like that. Dudley took a deep breath. When Dad's ready to apologize and move on, I'll be listening.
This is such a dramatic episode.
It really is, but I'm having a lot of fun.
It is fantastic. I love it.
I really like shouting and it being purposeful.
It does feel nice.
For the longest time, Petunia Dursley just stared at her son, not sure how to respond. Then the older Dursley woman stepped forward and embraced her son. Will's going to be a great wizard, Dudley. She looked up at her son. I'll call you tomorrow to check and see how the family is reacting. Would that be all right? Despite his anger at his father, Dudley couldn't help but smile at his mother. That would be greatly appreciated, Mom. I think Diane might need a woman's support in all of this. Petunia! Vernon Dursley's voice, what heard clear across the yard and into the house, disturbing the tender moment between mother and son. Reluctantly, Petunia stepped away from her son. I have to go, but I'll call you tomorrow. I'll be expecting it, Mom, Dudley said as his mother left to get into her husband's car.
It's like a downgrade right there.
Seriously.
Not Dudley's father. His mother's husband's car.
Slowly, but without hesitation, Dudley shut the door behind his mother, only to lean heavily on it once it was shut. It felt odd reprimanding not only his father, but his own mother about the situation, and over all things, it had been because Will was now a wizard. Dudley snorted, surprised he hadn't seen the signs before. William was always getting into trouble because of unexplained phenomena, like setting his teacher's toupee on fire because he was angry for being punished for his socks.
Yep. I would be angry for that too.
Yeah, although I never went to private school, so I don't know what the dress code punishment is like. Of course, Will would end up being a wizard. He had even said just that morning that he never wanted to be normal, and he had gotten his wish, even if he wasn't aware of it yet. The sound of his children bickering in the next room shook Dudley out of his thoughts as he walked away from the door. Mari, you can't open a present They're mine. I want to help. Dudley poked his head into the dining room to check on his children. Mari, Will is right. This is his special day. Will grinned at his father while Mari pouted. But if you wanted to be nice to your sister and let her help open some of the bigger ones, Will? Dudley gave his son a wink. Knowing that Will understood that it wasn't a suggestion his father gave him. Dudley was glad that his children hadn't overheard the argument he had with his parents in the hallway. He had always told his children that yelling never solved anything. He would have hated being called a hypocrite. Better help Diane with the cake, he thought. Dudley chuckled, knowing Diane she had already cut the cake, scooped the ice cream, before sorting the rest of the leftovers. All Dudley would have to do is take the cake to his children. Or so he thought. The moment he walked into the kitchen, he knew something was wrong. The cake had yet to be cut. Dudley, Diane said slowly, with her back to him, leaning over the sink. What the hell is this? Dudley opened his mouth to ask what she meant when he saw it. The opened envelope. Diane turned to face him, brow furrowed, and her hands clutching the letter. I guess I have some explaining to do. Dudley, if this letter is your idea of a joke, it isn't funny. Definitely would be my reaction.
Yep.
I would be like, what is this?
No. Can't crush your child's dreams like this.
Like, what? This is mean. This is a mean joke. Dudley made his way over to his wife. I know it isn't funny, Diane, because this isn't a joke. That letter is real. Well, that sounded convincing, Dudley. He reprimanded himself. Have you even read this letter, Dudley? Diane said in a heated tone, forehead wrinkled in frustration. Well, no, I haven't. Dudley realized how lame he must sound to his wife as she shoved the letter to his chest. Read it out loud, she said through gritted teeth as she turned her back to him, focusing on the cake. Dudley looked at the letter, reading the contents for the first time ever. Dear Mr. Dursley, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of necessary books and equipment. Term begins September 1. We await your owl by no later than July 31st. Yours sincerely, Neville Longbottom, Deputy Headmaster.
Neville!
We're getting some Neville. And I love that he's Deputy Headmaster.
Yep.
Which makes me so happy. I feel like that is such strong canon. Yeah. And I know it wasn't mentioned in the epilogue. But I feel that to my soul.
I feel like that's who he was.
Dudley could feel his throat tightening. He had always known what the letter meant. But to actually read it, he could feel a swelling in his chest. Was it pride? It must have been. He could never feel anything less for his son. Sure, magic had never been in Dudley's comfort zone, but he wasn't about to let that stop his son from being everything he could. Well, Diane's emotionless voice cut through Dudley's revelry. Although her back was still to him, he knew that his wife was expecting an answer. I know you'll never believe me, but Hogwarts? Dudley paused. That was the name of the school Harry had gone to. Hogwarts is a real school. Diane sliced the cake harder than needed.
That would be me.
Me too. Hitting the plate with a thwack. Where is it? I don't know. Thwack. What is it like? I don't know. Thwack. Will William learn to do virgin sacrifices at this so-called school? The last question was more sarcastic than anything else, but it made Diane's point. Dudley sighed. I'm pretty sure he won't be doing that. And how do you know? You don't seem to know anything about this school. Dudley, this is a horrible joke, and I won't let you play it on William. Thwack! Dudley made his way over to his wife. I never went to Hogwarts, but I swear to you, Diane, this is no joke. You saw my parents' reactions, and you know that my parents could never play a joke to save their lives. Diane suddenly spun around, pointing a very chocolate-covered knife at Dudley's chest. Don't you dare lie to my face, Dudley Dursley. With each word, the tip of Diane's knife clicked against the button of Dudley's polo, making her point that much clearer. I feel like that's definitely something both of us would do.
100%.
Dudley looked evenly at Diane. I would never lie to you, Diane. Diane pointed at the letter that laid on the counter. Then swear to me that everything in that letter is true? That this isn't a sick joke that you want to play on our son? Without breaking eye contact with his wife, Dudley took a deep breath. This isn't a joke. I swear to you that Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry is a real school. The reason that they contacted William is because he has been accepted, because he's a wizard. The tense moment hung in the kitchen as Diane looked into Dudley's eyes, searching for something. She must have found it, because the tense gaze in her eyes softened. The knife lowered to her side as her breaths became deeper, trying to calm herself. He's a wizard? I'm a what? Both Dudley and Diane jolted at the third voice, turning to face William, who was standing in the doorway. Mom? Dad? Will looked at his parents, unsure what to say. Then his eyes caught sight of his open letter, and before either parent could stop him, the 11-year-old boy took the parchment letter. His blue eyes widened as he read through the words of the letter. Dad, you just swore that this is true, didn't you? Dudley nodded dumbly at his son. William looked at his parents. I don't know where to start. There's so much I don't know. Dudley sighed. Unfortunately, I don't think I can explain everything as well as you might want. The only person I know that could help us is my cousin, and I haven't heard from him since... But Dudley was interrupted by the sound of rustling feathers and the hoot of the second owl of that night. The three Dursleys turned to look at the snowy owl that had landed on the kitchen counter. Wait, Dudley thought to himself. Harry had a white owl like that. That's when Dudley saw it, a small charm around the owl's leg, almost like a dog tag. But all Dudley saw was a small lightning bolt on one side. Just like Harry's scar.
Dun dun dun.
Could he have known that we needed him? Dudley decided not to think too hard on that. Magic had explained a lot in his life. Maybe it was just another instance that he just shouldn't question. William, get me a pen and paper, please, Dudley said quietly to his son, trying not to scare off the bird. Will nodded before rushing from the kitchen. Diane looked at Dudley. You have a cousin? Would totally be my reaction.
Yes.
Dudley nodded at his wife. Yes. That's how I know all about this. And I think that's his owl that's on the counter. He knows I need to contact him. Dudley trailed off as Will came back with a pen and paper. Thanks, Will. Stealing another glance at the owl on the counter, Dudley quickly began writing. But how could he explain to his cousin everything that had happened? Would Harry even respond? Dudley's heart was pounding in his chest as he folded the letter and quickly scrawled Harry's name as well as his own address. Did he need a stamp? Dudley had no clue as he looked at the owl. Could you take this to Harry Potter, please? He must have looked so foolish to his family, talking to an owl like that. But to his surprise, the owl took the letter from Dudley's hand in its own beak before taking off out the window at breakneck speeds. Dudley, you have some explaining to do, Diane said behind him. Yes, he did. End of chapter 3.
There's so many things happening.
So much is happening. Harry's owl just shows up. Like, what magic? Because it's Harry Potter fan fiction, and this is our first real magic that we're seeing.
This is crazy. Also, I love that Will set the teacher's toupee on fire with his magic.
Yes, I love it. Because that's how a lot of Harry's magic started showing, was jumping atop buildings or, growing his hair back overnight when he got a terrible haircut.
Yep.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes.
A nice one. And you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Through The Trapdoor 16 and on our Twitter at The Trapdoor 16.
Because Through the Trapdoor was too long for Twitter.
Yep.
And you can email us at throughthetrapdoor16@gmail.com with any story suggestions, or if there's anything you think that we need to see, whether it's a meme or another fan fiction, or if you have anything to say to us.
Bye.
Bye.